Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, where it's my privilege to be joined today by one of our favorite authors, Sylvain Neuvel. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's really great to see you. And as we were just talking about off camera, everyone at Forbidden Planet is a huge fan of your Themis Files series, Sleeping Giants, Awaking Gods, Only Human. So we're here to talk today about the first in a new series, right? And that specific book being A History of What Comes Next. But before I ask you about that, how have you been keeping during the lockdown and the quarantine?
Well, I've been, I'm pandemic, okay, I guess nothing bad happened, whatever, but it gets old after a while. I was lucky. I had 2 more books to write. So, because you need something to do. It's just otherwise I would have lost it. But I was working on the sequel to this and book 3 of the same series. So it was plenty to keep me busy, but we're okay.
Good. I'm glad you're all right, mate. And I'm hoping that even if it's while you're stuck at home, you have some alcohol in your future today.
I will have a beer later on. It's only 10 in the morning here, though, so probably not right now.
No, okay. I completely understand. It is a bit early in the day, even for an Englishman and a Canadian, I guess. So, mate, my question for you is that History of What Comes Next is the first in a new trilogy. Am I right? The yes. Take Them to the Stars series.
It is. There should be 3 books. So the series, can I tell you what it's about?
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what I would love to hear all about it. Yeah.
All right. So this entire series is about these really kick-ass mother and daughter pairs. They're all genetically identical. And they've been messing with our history for the past 3,000 years, trying to nudge us towards the stars so we can leave, or some of us can leave before something terrible happens and humanity disappears. And the first book in the series, called History of What Comes Next, is about Sarah and Mia, the 99th generation of said kick-ass women, as they go to, well, the book begins in Germany, where Mia, the daughter, has to exfiltrate Werner von Braun so that he can come and work for the Americans and they can start the space race with the Russians.
How did you come up with the mother-daughter team concept? Where did that come from?
Well, I wanted characters who could exist basically at any time in history, because I had this idea for like flashbacks of previous generations. And you kind of have 2 options, right? They could be immortal, like vampires or whatnot, but I didn't want to do that. Or there could be something weird about them where they're always the same. And I read about this fish in Texas, it's a real fish. They're all female, and they trick a male from another species into mating with them, but they don't pass on any of the genes from the male. So they basically clone themselves over and over again. So if you see one of those fishes, it's the same fish. Doesn't matter where it is. And so I thought, this is fantastic, because I can have my characters exist at any time, and they're still sort of the same, but at the same time, they're all individuals with their own experiences and whatnot. So I can give them a personality that's different from the last. And I don't have to write the same character over and over again. So it was fantastic. But yay, science.
So it literally, you start the novel in 1945, is that right?
Yes.
So right at the end of World War II.
Oh, right.
And why that era to begin with?
Well, first of all, the series is about getting us to space, so it made sense to have at least some sense of that it was doable. So there are flashbacks in the book that go back like 1,000 years before we even knew what a star was, but so it made sense to start there. Plus, the end of the war and the beginning of the space race is just such a fertile terrain to talk about a billion things, because it's like history on steroids. You have heroes everywhere, but you have the biggest villains we've ever had in history. There's death, there's violence, but there's also lots of good things happening, progress being made, and for regular people, it's a strange time. Like some people, their child was born in 1945, even though they were in Russia, and there's one a good portion of the population that died in the war, and it was famine, but you still have good moments in there, and it's the juxtaposition of all this good and bad that I found super interesting, and a really nice arena, so to sort of set the kind of story I had in mind.
Yeah, that really does sound wonderful. Now, when we meet Mira at the beginning of the novel, she's working for the OSS. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, how much research did you have to do? I mean, yeah, around that entire period of time, and about counterespionage at the end of the war, the beginning of the space race, about the space race itself.
I have a PhD in linguistics, and I think all my books required more research than the PhD. To be fair, though, I had to research a billion things for the Themis files as well, but it was mostly things like learning about different rocks and whatever. Learning about history was a new thing for me. And I knew nothing about, I knew a little bit, but I basically nothing about the war or the space race or rocketry or so I had to learn basically everything. I was actually pleasantly surprised, because it's way easier to do historical research than it is to do just regular research. There's a ton of documents out there. So many people have written about the war and the space race and von Braun, and the Russian space program is a little more obscure. So I had a lot of fun learning about that, because that's not something like we grew up with or saw on TV or in movies.
Yeah, no, of course. Something you touched upon, which I'm fascinated with about yourself, for a reason I shall explain, is I've got an English language degree, and therefore I studied linguistics as part of my, BA. So to meet somebody who's got a PhD in linguistics, I know how much hard work is involved in getting to that point. And I find that super impressive, but I don't think I've talked to many authors over the years who've got the background in translation that you have. And could you talk to me a bit about that, mate? I'm just fascinated how you ended up making that transition into writing fiction.
Well, I come from Quebec City, so I'm French to the bone. I was raised in French, learned English when I was maybe 18 or 19, except for, Mary goes to school by bus or things that we learned in school. But I've always had sort of an interest in language in general. So I worked as a journalist for local newspapers when I was younger. Then I got a job writing technical training manuals for other people. I wrote training manuals in HR, worked as a journalist again. So I've been finding ways to play with language pretty much all my life. And I'm a high school dropout. So I wanted to do things. So I dropped out of high school. I was about 15. And traveled for about a decade. And when I came back, I wanted to go back to school. So I did a BA in linguistics, in large part because I couldn't go into science. I didn't have enough physics or math. It would have taken like another decade of just catching up. And it was the closest, the most sciencey thing I could get into. So I got a BA in linguistics, and then I was gonna quit again, because it's really hard to get a job with a BA in linguistics, and I needed money. But my professor said, if you go to the US, and if you're lucky, they might pay for your studies. So I applied to basically any American university I didn't think I had a shot of getting in, because those are the ones with the money. And I ended up going to the University of Chicago, got a PhD there in record time, I guess, and came back here. And met my wife. Our son was born. And when he was about 2 or 3, we were watching some Japanese anime, and I asked him if he wanted me to build him a toy, because I like to make things, but we work on a computer all day, so building physical objects is a nice break from time to time. And he started asking a bunch of questions, like what kind of toy, what kind of robot, what does it do? Does it have pilots? Does it fly? He wanted a backstory to go with it. And basically for fun, I started writing on my couch on the iPhone. After I put him, after he went to bed every night, and a couple hours, And eventually that led to Sleeping Giants, which I thought, was just going to be for me, but I thought it was pretty good. So I tried to get it published, and eventually no one wanted it in the publishing world, but I was going to self-publish, and I got a great review in a US magazine, and then Hollywood got on board. And so I got a movie deal that got me a book deal, and suddenly I was, writing full-time and traveling the world and meeting all those wonderful, amazing people. Yeah, it's a dream come true.
What an amazing sequence of events, mate. I mean, I really love that. What I love about your story is the fact that your movie deal came first and then opened the way into the book deal. That surely has to be the way to do it, if you can do it that way.
Well, if you can, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is pure luck, right? Because I get a different reviewer at the magazine. None of this happens. So the right producer doesn't get on board in Hollywood, and none of this happens, and so on and so forth. But it's like this sequence of a billion things that had to go just right, and they all did, and it changed my life like this.
Yeah, and the output has been that great trilogy of books. And the book we are talking about right now, A History of What Comes Next, which people watching this video can buy in this beautiful hardcover signed bookplate edition that Sylvain has produced for Forbidden Planet, and you can order it from the links attached to this interview. Mate, before you go, we're all very excited to read the novel. I've got another question for you. I heard that you were involved with the upcoming Black Mirror book project. Is that right?
Well, sort of was. I think that project is sort of on the back burner now for everyone involved. I was thrilled and honored when they asked me. They wanted to have a Black Mirror books, set in the Black Mirror universe. And for the first book, they asked me, Cory Doctorow, and Claire North to each write a story. But I think the producers were really busy at the time. It was sort of, the show was too successful for its own good, I guess. And they didn't have the time to put into this. So it's been sort of put on hold, probably indefinitely. I have no idea.
Oh man, I hope it gets revived at some point, because I think that would suit your style perfectly, being able to play around in that universe.
I would love it. I was lucky. I got to play with the things I love the most. When Sleeping Giants came out, they asked me to write a short story for Star Wars. So I wrote a tiny story about the life of a stormtrooper in the official magazine. So it's canon. I wrote Star Wars canon.
Fantastic. I love it, mate. And before we go, can you, without spoiling things, and if it does spoil things, that's okay, could you give me a flavor of where the next two installments in the trilogy are going to go? What kind of eras they'll be set in?
All right. So each book follows one generation of these mother-daughter pairs. So the daughter in book one is the mother in book two. So book one starts in 1945. By book two, we're in the 70s. The book starts in 1968, but most of it is in the 70s. And the great thing about it is, and it's true for book one as well, each chapter title in this entire series is a song title from the years the story takes place in.
Oh man, that is wonderful.
So it comes with a playlist. I wrote each chapter listening to its own music, and you can do the same while you're reading it. The playlist is on Spotify and Apple Music and on Tidal. So book one is music from the 30s, 40s, 50s. And by book two, we're hitting the late 60s and 70s. The music is absolutely fantastic. Even if you don't read the book, you want the playlist for this one. And by the time we hit book three, we should be in about 2000.
Oh, mate, I am totally all in on that. And on that note, this has been Sylvain Neuvel talking about his epic book, A History of What Comes Next, which you can buy a signed hardcover edition of right here. And we'll also link to the Spotify playlist, so you can take a listen to those. Sylvain, thanks so much for shaking out the time to speak to us. It's been wonderful talking to you, mate.
It was great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll see you again. Take care, mate. All the best. For sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.